So, Brianna, I want to welcome you to the Convert with Confidence Summits. And I know we had you as a guest speaker on our last summit. And it's really interesting how, we get to talk about this topic today of how our wounds from the past and whether that shows up in attachment style or an anxiety or, however these wounds are manifesting today, how this translates into business and in working with our customers. I mean, I think we all understand and we kind of forget about the importance of how we show up, especially in sales. So for those of you who don't know Brianna is an author, educator, and licensed and board certified creative arts therapist. And with more than 15 years in the field, helping adults struggling with insecure attachment go from self-doubting to self-sovereign so they can attract those soul-shaking, passionate partnerships, or in this case, the clients, right? Our desired clients that we want. So Brianna, can you first talk to us about what's important about what do attachment styles have to do with sales? Because I'm sure, or even in business in general.
Sure. Well, attachment styles really are a reflection of your relationship to safety and security, right? And if we have an insecure attachment style, we sort of come at most situations and circumstances in our lives from an essential feeling of being insecure. So when it comes into the world of business, that can become very important to be aware of because of how you are showing up to the way that you request, elicit, and provide services and resources, right? So really anything you want in business, in relationships, in any other aspect of life, anything you want, you typically want because you think you're going to feel a certain way once you get that thing, right? And it's important to be aware of what is the feeling that you're trying to affect, right? Because a feeling is just energy moving through your body. So most of us are wanting from a place of lack, meaning we are wanting from a place of scarcity. We don't have enough, right? We are wanting from a place of a lack of confidence, right? Or we are wanting from a place of a lack of validation or approval. And so are we wanting from the position of, if I get these clients, then that means I know what I'm talking about. If I make this money, then I am not as worthless as my parents told me I was. If I succeed in this other aspect of my business, if I scale or if I grow, does that mean that, I don't have to struggle with imposter syndrome anymore? So all of those are themes that can be translated, in my opinion, both into a relational space as well as into the workplace. And of course, the workplace is just a system of relationships as well. It's a system in which there are exchanges of energy in the form of money in exchange for what we value, right? For a service or for what we think is of value. And we decide to make those exchanges based on how highly we have prioritized the service of the person that you are paying it to, right? Or how highly how well you want to serve the people that you want to serve and the value that you are placing on the service you're providing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I can't even, for those coaches and consultants who are watching, do you tend to get anxiety around, is there this scarcity mindset around, closing that next client or getting that next client or even chasing that next payment? And I can even remember in my past, it was like, in fact, this actually just happened the other day. I got off the phone and I was going to invoice out a client. And then there was like this fear, like, are they going to send it back? Am I going to hear from them again? And actually what surprised me, I was like, wow, it's amazing how our abandonment issues can trickle into just our sales conversations with people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and oftentimes when we are so focused on building a business, it's like all about strategy. We think it's all about the strategy, having that perfect funnel, having that perfect sales script. And we often don't look at ourselves as being a part of that process, right? So Brianna, would you talk a bit about like what attachment styles are? And in the case of this audience, a lot of them tend to be people pleasers, and they're, again, seeking validation in how much like their client wants to pay them versus what their actual value that they think that they have in themselves. They're underselling themselves. They're exhausted. They're almost like a slave to their business and their clients.
Yes. Well, so it's kind of an onion, right? Because first you have to look at, is your business a soulful expression? Like, is your business in service of your higher purpose on this earth? Is your business in service of what is going to light you up on a spirit level? Is your business a reflection of a evolving journey to connect with others, because in effect you are relaxing even more into yourself the more you provide this service, right? So it's a bit paradoxical in that sense. So we have to also kind of think about what's your mission, right? Like, what's your mission? All businesses have a mission language or a mission statement, and they all have a fundamental principles at the base of it. What is it that we are trying to serve? How are we contributing to the collective experience? Even a business that sells dishwashing detergent, right? So what is my mission here, and what soulful role does that play in my life? And that becomes kind of like everything else kind of extends from that. So when we are, and especially, so attachment styles are basically how you are orienting yourself to another person, or we could say more broadly, to a sense of connection, in order to feel safe in your own body, in order to feel like you can trust your own intuition, in order to feel like I'm worthy, and I have value, and I have a right to my feelings, and I have a right to say what I have to say. And my perspectives are equally as important as someone else's. And just because someone else has a perspective, it doesn't negate mine. And just because I have one doesn't mean that I'm going to negate somebody else's, right? And they don't have to agree. Opposing ideas and thoughts and feelings can all exist simultaneously in a shared reality, right? So avoidant attachment is a habit of putting distance between oneself and the feeling of intimacy or connection, because it creates some anxiety for whatever reason. And usually that's because growing up, that closeness was twisted in some way, right? There was too much responsibility put on the person. There was unrealistic expectations put on that person, or that person was made to be completely in charge of somebody else's emotional life. And that is more responsibility than anybody should have to take on. So that child grows up, and now they put distance between themselves and partners, because they feel that to love someone means you have to take on more than you should ever have to take on. And you lose yourself in that. So we defend against that by not needing anyone in anything, right?
Yeah.
So that's avoidance. And this can also, of course, manifest itself in business. We can have degrees of, we can have degrees of that, right? Of, well, I don't need anything from you, I'm going to go it alone, right? Or not being a team player, right? There's also a demonstration of avoidance where you have someone who takes a leadership role, and they're very charismatic, and they get a lot of work done. They may be even a workaholic, right? But the thing is, in those circumstances, those folks, it can be easier to advocate for an idea, or for a business, or for something that where the emotional boundaries are very clearly defined, right? Where it's about business and we can cut the emotions out of it, so to speak. Or that's the illusion, right? We all have emotions about going to work, right? That's not really what happens, but that's the illusion, right? It should be logical decisions, not emotional decisions.
Your emotions at the door, right?
Right. But these type of avoidant, so they may like a leadership position because it provides some of the connection and attention that they do crave deep down, but there's not the same kind of responsibility that exists in an intimate relationship, right? So these people could also excel at work, and it's much easier to bond to a cause, or to a mission statement, or to watch measurables and deliverables go up and down, right? And to be an advocate for that and to garner admiration for that. But you, in those positions, in fact, it would be almost unhealthy to have it is, in fact, in many cases illegal to have intimate relations with the people in that kind of system, right? Because it's still, in many cases, particularly in corporate structures, hierarchical. There are power dynamics, right? And it's considered foundational to the success of that endeavor. So it's different in that way, but you still see, especially in those environments, you can still see those environments becoming very toxic because people who walk into them and assume those roles are living out their own experience of toxic power dynamics, especially the ones that they grew up with. I don't know if that answers your question. That's avoidant attachment. And of course, we have the anxious folks who will have a similar wound, but will express the opposite side of that coin, which is instead of cutting off, reaching for. Oh, well, you want me to try harder, so let me try harder. Let me please you more. Let me bend over backwards to see what I can do to make you happy so that I feel comfortable in vicinity and proximity to you, right? So that I feel like I'm getting the reward, and through the reward, I will know that I'm worthy, right? Or through the reward, I will know that I'm right and I'm just and I'm doing the good thing because I'm the good child, right? And so these two often find each other in these types of dynamics, whether it's personal or professional. You'll see these things playing out because the structure in which these things are playing out may be different in like a business / hierarchical system versus in a relationship system, right? But they can be, once we sort of scratch the surface, those same things are playing themselves out. Folks with disorganized attachment will probably swing back and forth between these two responses. Sometimes they will cut themselves off. Sometimes they will sort of cling and reach for, right? These folks are more likely to have also some dissociative aspects to their presentation. It may only be triggered in a relationship context. Like we do have the ability to draw lines around experience, so we can compartmentalize. So some people can have really good boundaries around their professional life, and they can excel really well in those spaces, and then go into their relationships like, why are my relationships crap? Like, why can I say no to my boss when they want me to work overtime, but I can't say no to my partner who asks me to, watch his dog for a week while he goes off with his friends and doesn't invite me, right?
Yeah, what I heard somewhere was, I don't remember who said this, but they said when there's love or money on the line, that's when it starts to become harder to do things like assert boundaries, right? So like maybe if we've conquered it in our personal life, maybe we're afraid of speaking up to our boss, or in cases in the theme of this summit being converting with confidence, like are you caving when you want to, let's say now you've increased your rates? I can think of a moment where I've been like, and it's my old rate. Right. Sort of that bending over backwards.
Yeah. Yes. And in many ways it's, that can go deep. It's relational, but it's also survival, because if I don't get this client, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Like what goes through, and I'll just ask you, what goes through your mind? If this client walks away and they don't accept my rate, what does that mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for me now, it's like, it's a good thing. Like, cause maybe
well, now you know, right?
Right.
But if we were to assume for anyone watching this, right, what would it mean?
Yeah.
Well, I must be charging more than I'm worth. Or I know I'm worth it, but nobody else sees it.
Yeah.
That's what's called, that's like, they call that a vulnerable narcissistic wound. But the idea that we know we're good, but nobody sees it, right? And so then we attract people who want to take advantage, and we sense that, but we don't know how to assert ourselves because we feel invalidated, right? So there's like 4 sort of, and I'm not talking about narcissistic personality disorder, I'm talking about wounding. So anyway, that's this very deep conversation, but basically there's a couple of different ways that we receive that, which is I'm great, but nobody sees it. The world is against me. No matter how hard I try, I'm never going to see the fruits of my labor. And the only way that I'm going to be able to have any measure of success is if I settle for what market value dictates, right? Yeah. What the market dictates.
What the next coach is doing, the next
coach tells me. And so this can, it reveals layers of permission. We're always asking for permission. Do I have a right to have my feelings? Do I have a right to say what I have to say? Do I have a right to assert my boundaries? Translates into, do I have a right to take on this client? Do I have a right to charge that much money? Do I have a right to market myself in this way? Right. And so then we start looking out to the outside world to validate our rights to these things. And how do we do that? We seek permission. Where do we seek permission? So, and this is, I mean, I come from a therapist background, you know, a therapeutic background, and this happens a lot among therapists because let's be honest, therapists become therapists because they themselves were trying to figure something out from their personal experience, right?
Same with hypnotists, by the way. Yeah.
And they become therapists, and then they've got their own stuff that they are hopefully effectively utilizing to become better at their craft, but it's still there. So then they're also seeking layers of permission, and add to that, there's lots of regulation necessarily so around that. So now, but there's a threshold like everything. Okay, get the degrees and get the things you need, and then do what you got to do. Like use your voice, start your business, run those workshops, do consulting, start a private practice, believe that you can charge what you can charge because you've acquired the knowledge you do know. You do know, and the things that you know are valuable to people, and you do those that will be best served by you. You're doing them a disservice when you undervalue yourself because it makes you invisible to them.
Yeah, I think we like start to, right, we can have like 10 people sign up for our program or our class or attend like our Facebook Live or whatever, but it's like the one person that tells us like, yeah, you know, you're too expensive, or you know, I don't have it. Like we hear the excuses or the games, and we tend to hyper focus, right, on the ones that are like maybe, you know, get to our self-esteem a little bit or our confidence.
And what a gift they are, because now you're like, and now you notice your response to it, and you're like, ooh, there's a dust bunny I got to clean out. Thank you. Right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, thank you for just shining a light on the constriction that still exists in my vibration. I'm going to go clean that out. Thanks so much. Right.
Yeah. It used to feel like, it's like if I didn't have if I didn't get my expectations met, like, and, you know, I heard somewhere they said you should lower your expectations in business, not to say like, don't shoot for the stars, but like often we think like, oh, let me just put out this one post and I'm going to get so many likes. Or if I do a Facebook Live, or I'm going to get so many buyers when I put out this offer. I think it's kind of maybe our ego is a little bit maybe embellished.
Well, I think you're pointing out something good. And I think probably what the advice being offered is trying to get, as my assumption anyway, is that be aware of your ego, right? Because it's not that you will never put out an ad that's successful, because people have like viral videos and things all the time. Like it is possible. It's not that it's not possible. But a lot of times and this is, I used to teach spiritual coaching in business. And a lot of times what happens is people will grab on to an idea, which is true in essence, right? But so they sort of jump to the outcome and they skip all of the path in between, right? So it's kind of like, who's the guy? James Clear wrote Atomic Habits, I think, but he talks about how stop thinking about the results and start loving the habit, right? So in order to write an ad like that, which is possible, but in order to write an ad like that, which is very successful, there are steps that can be taken to make sure that, number one, it's going to be seen by the right people. Number two, you're going to be using the language and the words that are going to vibrate and resonate with the right people. And number three, that you are going to have the apparatuses set up to actually receive, segment, and follow up with that kind of energetic flow. And the thing is, someone who says, I'm going to write an ad and it's going to be wildly successful, and you haven't set up all the apparatuses on the back end of that, it's going to fail. And if it doesn't, even if it hits a gazillion people, if you don't have the systems in place to capture and properly disseminate, I'm going to call it energy, that kind of energetic influx, then what's going to happen is you're going to be like, oh, I failed. I got all this stuff and I messed it up and it didn't work. This isn't for me. So when you write that ad and it's not successful, it's the universe protecting you, because it's saying, yeah, because you're not ready yet. right? You haven't taken the steps necessary. You're not even aware of the steps that would be necessary to receive and delegate that kind of energetic flow. So this is a gift to you to recognize, oh, this is actually where I am on my journey, right? This is actually where I'm located in my process. And I can, and if I have judgment around that, I should be farther along than I am right now. I should be more successful than I am right now. I'm already X number of years old. And why do these young kids I see influencing and everything else have all the things that I should have figured out by now? There you go. There's the gift of that inner judging critic that's stuck with comparisonitis that would rather you be spinning your wheels around that, spitting out ads that aren't going to be successful because you haven't done the research to set up the proper apparatuses to receive the energetic flow that you are asking for. And so now you're beating yourself up with this internal story. It's like, thank you. Now I know that internal story's there. And that is the real restriction, constriction around what I would need to loosen up and sweep out in order for me to realize, oh, my next step is actually taking a class on marketing copy. My next step is actually spending $5 a day on a Facebook ad to build a group slow and steady. My next step is to send out a survey to my email audience, asking them what they need from me and me responding to that and taking their exact verbiage and using it in my next ad, right? Like, it's this balance of action and reception, like being receptive energetically and then taking action on what I call winks from the universe, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, I think that speaks to what you were saying.
Yeah. I mean, I can think of even how that's reflected in like personal relationships. It's like, if we expect that expectation too quickly, like, oh, I'm going to get, meet this person, be married in 3 months. It's like, the growth hasn't happened typically, right? Like the things that need to happen so you can build that trust, which of course you still need in business. Cause I mean, ultimately, right. Like people need to get to know you, like you, trust you. And I know for me, it was a very all or nothing mindset. And maybe some of these you viewers can relate. Like, it's like, oh, they either need to buy now when I play up my offer, or they're never going to do it. And versus like, what do I need to do to earn their attention, earn their trust, earn their respect, earn their eyeballs, right?
Well, it's interesting you use the word earn, because that also speaks to the need for approval, right? Or the need to justify or convince.
Yeah.
But it's almost semantic in a way, right? Because you do need time. You do need time to, perhaps it's not earn, maybe it's more develop a connection, right?
I like that better. Yeah.
Like it's time to develop a connection. It is time for them to get used to you, right? It's time, know, like, and trust. Yes. It's time for them to get to know, like, and trust you. And that is a natural evolution of relationships anyway, like just human relationships in general, right? And also it's important for us as business people to also appreciate that process, because you also want to attract clients that are a good fit for what you've got. And that patience, that buffer of time and energy in exploring, is this a connection that works for both of us in relationships, whether it's in business or in personal life, is going to allow both of you to know if it's a good fit. Because, inevitably as a business owner, you're going to want testimonials. You're also going to want to know that what you're offering lands well, right? So the more that you connect with the people that you are wanting to serve, the more they're going to tell you what's working and what isn't. And, that is invaluable information, because the more you learn about, even if they're just complaining, the more you learn about what isn't working, that's that much more you know about what will, right? So then you start creating, so then eventually you develop something that is so good that you're not even using paid traffic anymore. It's just organic, because word of mouth has spread, right? And it's just going to come to you. It's like, it takes time working through that, and everyone's going to take a different amount of time with it. And part of it is letting go of the comparisons that evolve in that, right?
And I've also seen, in clients of mine, and I can think of in the past and even now, sometimes there's like this tiptoeing mindset. Like if you're going to put out an email, you're going to put out a post or something, there's this like, well, I don't want to offend anybody. I'm afraid to make someone angry. And therefore there is no polarization. It's just it's just like this avoidance of making someone angry or pushing people away or out of fear of not getting that next sale. So they're not even focused, right, on their ideal client. They're focused on, let me tiptoe, stop walking on eggshells. Like where might this be coming from? Is this like a specific attachment style? And what's maybe one shift we can start to make to move away from that?
Well, yes. So in many ways that kind of dilutes what you have to offer, right? And this is in relationships, it kills passion because, you stop showing up and you think that I'm trying to do everything to make them happy and you're abandoning yourself in the process. So you're completely absent. Even though you're there doing all the things, in effect, you're completely absent from the relationship, right? Same thing in business. You're completely absent in your business when you're doing that, right? So there's no energy, because the energies become so diffuse trying to solve everything and everyone for everyone and everything and please everyone and everything. The energy is so diffuse, it's like a fog on the ocean, and and what you really want to be the lighthouse. You want to be the light that's shining through that fog, and something that's definitive, that stands out on the horizon, that is bright and shining and stands out above the rest, right? And from the rest. And so that means you got to have some good definition around yourself, and you have good boundaries. You have to be clear about what it is that you offer, and you have to be patient and wait for the people who are good fit for your offer to arrive, right? And so it is going to involve saying no to people who only want to pay you your old sliding scale fee, right? It is having a real discussion with yourself about all the other side hustling projects you are doing because you're too afraid that the thing you're really passionate about is going to fail.
Yeah, I can relate with that one. You're switching from like if you're switching into high ticket sales, or maybe you're changing your niche around. I think that was one of the most terrifying things for me, was like completely leaving the old business model, old niche, to work with a brand new one. It was terrifying. It's done. But it's like starting a brand new business almost, right?
Yeah. And of course, there's different phases of this. Like maybe in the beginning, that's what you do because you're not yet on sure footing, because you're not really comfortable letting go of that source of income. And that's okay. And there will be a time, I know, especially in the therapist world, there's a lot of therapists who work their regular job that gives them insurance 20 hours a week, and then they'll start building their practice. And it's okay to be in that place, and it's okay to do it that way. But there will eventually come a point where you hit a threshold with that. And you'll sense it. It will be a sensate thing. It's something that you will feel in your body. It's something that you'll wake up with anxiety dreams. It will be a low mood or a sort of irritation that kind of, now, instead of being, happy to go to work, you're irritated, right? You just don't want to do it. So it will be something that is communicated to you on a feeling sensate level that you are reaching a threshold with it, right? And it is time to start making some leaps of faith. And allowing yourself to do so. In the end, it's afraid, it's fearful, it's scary, but in the end, once you face that fear, it creates a vacuum. And those 20 hours that you could have been spending building a business that in a year or 2 years will actually make you 3 times what you're making in that 20-hour-a-week job. It's going to pinch maybe in the beginning, but what it does is it creates a vacuum, and it says, no, I'm serious about this, universe. And the universe says, well, alrighty then,
bring it on.
Bring it on. Right. So, okay, great. So I'm going to send you 2 other clients that don't want to pay your rate, so that you can, now that you've taken the action, awesome. But now you're still going to struggle with, am I going to get what I'm betting on, right? So, okay, we need to clean out those doubts. So we'll send you 3 new clients who don't want to pay your rates. And then you can suffer with not having the income and feeling like shit. Now I have to deal with clients that don't want to pay my rates. Oh my God, I made the wrong decision, right? So now you get to be aware of and play with that lurking beneath the surface, right? So it's always, and at every phase of development, it's continual expansion process,
Yeah. I can think of, I had that test, I think 2 days ago, maybe just a day ago. I have my new rate, and I had, I don't work with smoking clients anymore. It's never really been a passion of mine. And she came to me for smoking, and I was like, well, I don't this is my rates.
Mhm.
And regardless of what I'm working with, smoking, emotional eating or whatever. And I was like, and at that point, it was almost a beautiful moment to actually, because what I felt was her energy coming towards me. It was like, all this sounds great. All this sounds great. All this sounds great. And, I'm used to now, selling more higher ticket offers where people are like ready to go. But I felt as soon as that price came up, it was like, boom, then her energy started moving away. And, of course I coached her and, so here's what's actually happening and weighing the values. And she still was like, let me shop around, was her language. I'm still shopping around. And that's when I realized I was like, not for me anymore, so we get to start to, and maybe saying no is a little bit, direct, but we get to show,
No,
here's the
you
door.
get to say no.
You get to say no or no, thank you, if that feels better, right?
You 100% get to say no. We're not a good fit. And I'm qualified to tell you, we're not a good fit. Right?
Yeah. So are you struggling saying no in your business? I think probably more than half, if not this audience somewhere, feels bad, right, for turning people away or for raising their rates, or maybe there's this imposter syndrome that floats around. And I know we don't have a whole lot of time left, but I'm sure people are wondering, well, let's say I have been in business for a while and I'm selling, few sessions at a time, few $100, $1,000 or two, and they're ready to move into this high ticket, but they're like, I don't feel good about that. Like, I don't feel like I'm worthy of a $6,000 coach, a $10,000, $20,000 coach. Like where can we maybe start to fill in the gaps?
Yeah.
So we feel good about receiving them.
Sure. So I can give you some book recommendations too, which was focused specifically on that. So, for example, the Great Leap, by Gay Hendricks, or The Leap, I should say, by Gay Hendricks, and also Tapping into Wealth by Margaret Lynch. Both talk about this very specifically, which they call it the energetic set point, or trying to move past your zone of excellence, right? So the idea is that, I can use Gay Hendricks language, the idea is that we all like to hang out in our zone of excellence because we're comfortable there, we perform well there, but there will still be like an itch, right? Like it doesn't quite satisfy. And like I said before, it's a developmental process. Eventually you will hit a threshold with that itch and it will be intolerable, right? So that's sort of like when all of a sudden they have the inkling, well, I want higher ticket clients, or I want to scale my business in online courses or whatever. Like you'll feel confined by the circumference to which you have expanded thus far. And you'll feel like, no, I want to go even bigger, right? So if you perform well here, it's almost like, okay, here's survival. You start making enough money to get past survival. Okay, so now I'm worried about losing the money I got to get past survival. Okay, so now you over 6 months to a year, your nervous system starts calming down because you're starting to see, okay, the money's consistent, it's coming in, I'm not as bad anymore. So now you're like, okay, but now I want to be comfortable. Like I don't want to just not be surviving, I want to be comfortable. Okay, so there's the next one, right? Okay, now I'm comfortable. Ooh, like I'm making some money, I'm going on vacations, I'm actually saving for retirement. Like, what is this? All right, great. And then you're like, oh, but I want to thrive. Okay, that's the next level of that. What's thriving? Thriving, you get to the level of thriving, now you're butting up against myths about deservedness and money, moralizing money, all of the family and intergenerational stories about money and having suffered at the hands of people who've made money, and money's because now you're making enough money that you might be moving out of a class, right? You might be bumping up into a different tax bracket. So all of that societal criticism, judgment, moralizing, politics comes into play, right? And now we are in dialogue really with a collective conversation, right? Yeah. And it's happening inside of you, within you as the individual, you're having this, now you're butting up against a collective conversation. So then you have to sort of what that means is you develop a new degree of individuation. Who am I as an individual in relationship to the collective? And oftentimes it requires breaking down some of the damaging thoughts that we perpetuate as a society, which are really microaggressions that keep people suppressed on a certain level, because we are moralizing suffering and we are moralizing poverty while at the same time exonerating it and then demoralizing having an influence. Like nobody questions or really, if an expensive hotel charges high rates, oh, you want to go to a luxury hotel, you have to spend a lot of money, right? Nobody questions that. So there's certain things that we accept, but then, oh, well, you're a therapist and you help people figure out their mental and emotional life, which is basically how you experience the entirety of life, which is the most important thing you can do.
Yeah.
You're not really entitled to make a lot of money doing that. Makes absolutely no sense, right? We accept paying a shit ton of money for things like surgeons and specialized people in medicine, right? Which is arguably, it's not arguable. It is. It's about like a life or death situation.
Yeah.
And we pay them a shit ton of money. Why is that not considered a fundamental human right and need to the medical care that you want? And yet we pay them a lot of money and no one really questions it. And arguably, if someone were able to access things like mental health care and emotional guidance and well-being, it would probably reduce a lot of the need for the somaticized symptoms and illnesses and diseases that are emerge because none of that's being taken care of, right?
Yeah.
So the way that we value money and the way that we think it's okay to give it to this person and that person or what have you becomes very distorted. It's very distorted. It's very contradictory in our society. And we have a tendency to think that money is a reward for hard work. But then in the same way that we think that true love is a reward for suffering for your love, right? If you don't suffer for me, then you don't really love me, right?
It's
or
like this sacrifice, like you
sacrifice. Yes, that's the scarcity mindset, right? And so we think money is a measure of deservedness, and then we think you have to work hard to be deserving. And the thing is that money is an expression of energy. Value is an expression of energy. If you start, I think if there's one thing that I would leave you with here today, it would be try in your daily life to replace the word money with energy. I need more energy.
Yeah.
I would like to develop some stores of energy. I would like to commit my energy to my retirement and to save some energy. How am I going to commit energy to my future and to my present experience, right? Mm-hmm. Think about it that way, right? So start to think about how you're going to reframe that. And the same thing you can do for partnership. So when you want to partner, and I hear people say this all the time, I want to partner because then I'm going to feel more connected, right? I'll feel more intimate. I'll feel more connected. So then replace partner with connection. Say, instead of saying, I want to meet a better partner in my life, say, I want to create better connections. And all of a sudden the world opens up to you, right?
Yeah.
And then you're making all these connections. Suddenly you're filled up. Now a partner just shows up because they are mirroring the connected feeling that you want to feel. And so now the partner can come in because you've built the apparatuses that will allow you to move that energy around once it comes in. Same way with business.
Yep. I love it. This can go so deep. I think, talking about like your energy, and it's interesting. I had a coach of mine and I was talking to her about like, well, I was struggling to sell like higher ticket, raising my prices. And she said something very interesting. She said, it's all the same energy. Mm-hmm. And for months I was contemplating this. I was like, all the same. Like, who is that? What kind of energy is that? And what is the same about it? Were a lot of questions that were coming up. And now I'm seeing, right? Like, oh, the person who's ready, the person who's, of course, these are not people who are going to be out on the street if they pay you, obviously not a good fit, but it's like, there's not a really big difference between, $5 or $6 or $7 or $10,000. It's the same energy. Right. It's the openness, it's the ready, it's just that exchange. I love that energy from money that gives.
Yeah. I would absolutely encourage that. It's like one thing you can just start practicing. And because what happens is your perception of problems changes. So it's not a money problem, it's an energy problem. And then your perception of solutions changes. Mm-hmm. So if I'm trying to affect energy instead of money, how am I affecting things, right? So for example, if you want money because you think that's going to let you relax more, right? So what you're looking after is what you're chasing after is relaxation. You can accomplish relaxation at any time, with or without the
right
moment.
now.
Exactly. And the more you practice relaxation, the more that energy is going to enter into your life. And so what happens is the money follows. And it comes with effortlessly. This is what I mean by, like, when I say, when, you know, for anxious folks who sort of prioritize and look for permission outside themselves to strategize or tell them what they should and should not do, what formula is going to work the best for them, what have you. All of that's good information, and it may be useful tools, but only if it is useful to the inspiration that you get from the essence of your own energy, right?
Yeah.
And the more you can be tapped in, and you're a hypnotist, so the more that, and which an amazingly effective tool for getting in touch with us, the more that you can be connected to the energy and the essence of what this unconscious part of our, I like to call it spirit, soul, higher self, higher knowing, what have you. It might just, you could just say it's just the unconscious part of your brain that's picking up on stuff that you don't consciously acknowledge, right? But the more you can tap into that, and you can move in relationship to that, and you can make discerning decisions about, wow, here's this plethora of, you know, mentors and people I could hire and trainings I could take and certifications I could get, and, you know, different types of marketing things I could do. Look at this smorgasbord that life has to offer me. This is fantastic. So I'm going to pick what resonates in my soul for what is going to open up what comes next for me, right? And allowing that to be a step-by-step process, because you cannot see the whole picture from where you are, right? We are living our lives moment to moment, but the essence of you, the spirit of you, the higher knowing has a moon's eye view of your life and everything in it, right? So and it can guide us step by step, but it's kind of like when you're driving in a car and you're going from point A to point B on vacation, and you've got your friend in the car seat next to you being navigator, right? Is it helpful for them to tell you every twist and turn and off ramp and, you know, street that you're going to have to turn on at the beginning of the trip? Right? Is that helpful for you? No, you're going to forget it. It's going to be confusing. You're not going to remember what you're supposed to be doing while you're driving, and you're going to get lost.
Yeah.
And then you're going to give up and you're going to go home. So you have to let it be like a navigator in the car right next to you, just giving you what is the next direction, the next, like, you know, 10, 20, 30 feet in front of you. This is what you can expect. We're going to take a right here, and then just stay on that road for the next 30 miles. Then I'll give you the next direction. And that's really how I would recommend letting your business evolve.
I love it. This is such a valuable information, especially if you're caught in this loop of being exhausted, you're overworked, you have no time for yourself, you feel like you're being undervalued or underpaid, you want to expand, you want to influence more, but maybe you don't feel good about it, you don't feel deserving about it. Like, this is all where it needs to start, right? Because whatever you're feeling, especially, of course, again, being this theme of converting clients, your prospect is going to feel that as well. So why should they buy from you if you're showing up as like an anxious mess, unsure about yourself, right? Like, it's about, you know, would you buy from someone who people pleases, right? I would never, you know, spend $10,000 on a people pleaser. Like, I want to know what's what, I want help. And so,
and you don't want to take care of them.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is when you people please, you are saying, when you people please to someone, it's going to be read energetically. They're going to pick up on it. Yeah. And they're going to say, oh God, I have to take care of this person. They're trying to please me because they don't have confidence, because they don't know, because they're relying on me to tell them that they're doing a good job, right? I want them to know they're doing a good job. I want them to feel like they have something to contribute to what I'm doing, because I don't know what I'm doing. So I want them to tell me, or at least to feel like what they're offering me is good information for me, right? Because they are looking for direction. They don't want to give it to you. They don't know, right? So you have to show up like, I'm the one with the reins in the room, and I'm going to tell you, even on sales calls, I'm the one who's going to tell you what we're going to do on this sales call. This is what you can expect.
Yeah.
Right?
Being a leader, showing up your authority. Yeah.
You create the structure, and they get to choose if they want it or not.
Love it. And if you need help, if you're asking the question of like, well, where do I even start? Like, I don't even know my attachment styles. I know I have these habits, but I don't have enough clarity. Brianna, I know you have a free gift for this audience so that they can really start to tap into this journey. This is essential, guys. Like, you cannot skip over this. You can hoping, wishing, wondering will not bring you more income or even more qualified clients. We can't hope for this. We're attracting what we are, regardless of whether we're aware of it. So this is super important to pay attention to. Brianna, if you can point us to your free gift.
Sure. So this is the link that I provided is a quiz. It's just a 4-question quiz that will help you think about your attachment style, the way that you show up to relationships. And at the end of it, there's a little outcome video that will tell you more about the challenges and the areas that you might have become aware of. And then if you're interested and it sounds like it resonates with you, there is a special offer there to learn more with me online.
Awesome. Yeah, Brianna has a thriving YouTube channel. That's where I discovered her, and just such a wealth, just humbling, and just giving out so much information that you could, even if you don't feel like you want a coach right now or a therapist, you can just get started over with Brianna. I think you have a lot of group classes and courses and things like that.
Yes, and I do also have a Facebook group, which is also very supportive, and people who have similar issues can chat in there too.
Yep. Click the link below. All of Brianna's social media is below, as well as the link to her free gift. So go get that. This link is only available for the next 48 hours. Such a vital part of these sales, or even just building a business, guys. When you can master this, when you can really start to hone in and heal and not make yourself wrong for your anxiety, not make yourself wrong for not being able to make that sale or sign that client, but learning from it, expanding on that. And Brianna, always love chatting with you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.